How's it going, everyone? Max here, back with some additional Killer Instinct coverage, and this is going to be a very personal video, but it's gonna come down to nostalgia, how I feel about a character, how a character is going in Killer Instinct, and you can probably already assume what I'm talking about. It's Fulgore. So, Fulgore is probably the most interesting character in terms of development in all of Killer Instinct. Between Season 1 and Season 2, he took a dramatic shift, and during that time, I did not actually have a lot of time with the character, but I did fully agree that Fulgore, in terms of his upgraded version, from Season 1 having to be a charge dude, to Season 2 naturally getting the charge over time, is indeed a better character, and I will agree with pretty much all you guys on that. He is a much more viable character, he's easier to use, but some of the stuff that was really exciting about Season 1, which was, you know, the giant height beam, is a little bit less exciting in Season 2 and a lot more risky and not really worth the reward in many situations. However, over the past month or so, we did get some pretty critical changes to Fulgore in terms of how the beam works. You get a big additional amount of potential damage after using the beam. You get potential damage on block as well, meaning that if you hit him with a combo after the beam, you can get a huge level 4 cash out for like an additional 40%. And I did get this many times, and I developed this kind of strategy around it. So it made the beam kind of useful in some situations, but extremely discouraging if you don't land that thing after, which is the entire kind of reason for landing the beam. So I got some time with Fulgore. I had a few play sessions where there was at least a few hours involved where I learned a lot of the character and how he's playing now. And in terms of how Fulgore has evolved, yeah, he does feel like he can be an extremely good character. I've spoken many times with Adam, the lead designer of Killer Instinct Season 2 as far as gameplay mechanics, and when he's designing characters, he wanted Fulgore to have access to a lot more of the stuff that makes him fun. He's got this grounded 50-50 mix-up after a knockdown. That's kind of what Fulgore is all about, and some of that stuff was present in Season 1, but you have to be much more conditioned to charging all the time, and he wanted to take that away, and he absolutely did. Fulgore is a much more accessible character as a result of it, but in my opinion, he always kind of lacked that big splash of excitement, which only really existed in Season 1 Fulgore because Fulgore was so hard to use. In Season 1, you had to do so much with Fulgore to make him even like a competent character amongst some of the other characters in the cast, and it took a long time to understand, but at least he had that beam. He had that big 40% holy crap amount of damage, and it was genuinely very exciting, and it's kind of hard to balance that big damaging thing in results of Season 2 Fulgore, who has access to a lot more tools. And we were talking a bit about this on how on paper Fulgore is like, holy crap, could technically be the best character in the game. And what's happening now is that Fulgore is going to be getting a nerf in the upcoming patch for Aghanos that's coming at the end of the month. Now, this nerf isn't entirely too bad. He's pretty much losing like 10 to 15% on all of his damage completely. So instead of doing, instead of doing 20%, he's going to do 18 or around 17% damage. Instead of doing 50% damage, he's going to do like 43 to 44%. And that's not a huge nerf, all things considered. They felt that Fulgore was just hitting a little too hard. But at the same time, I mean, it's a nerf to Fulgore. A lot of people were flipping out about it. My initial reaction was like, really? I was expecting something else to be done with him. The biggest thing I would love to be done with Fulgore, and if this would happen, I would be completely happy with the character, is if the beam could be used as a cash out option. If you have it in a combo and you use it as a proper ender in a combo, it would cash out damage according to the levels you have, level 1, 2, 3, or 4, but it would multiply it like higher amounts depending on which one to scale appropriately. Because right now, if you use the beam in a combo outside of a wall bounce, it scales really hard and it's not worth it at all. But Maya has access to this big thing that she does where she cashes out for like a level 8 ender or something like that. I don't even know if it needs to be that big. I would just love to see the beam used in combo in some way, because I think it's a very, very, very cool looking attack. But outside of that, it's kind of hard to balance all this stuff, and he is getting that damage nerf because they do feel that he is too powerful of a character right now. And like I was saying, I do kind of agree with them. On paper, he looks like he could be the best character in the game. He has everything. He's essentially a more effective Jago. But you don't see Fulgore's really winning all the time, and I think it's the natural thing of Killer Instinct as a game, because in this game, combo breakers are extremely prevalent in terms of how you actually treat the game. Combo breakers as well as counter breakers and things like that, and balancing characters around a game that has that aspect, which is a completely human aspect, is kind of crazy. You know, Fulgore gets always these 50-50 mix-ups from left and right. He kind of gets, every knockdown he touches you, he gets to do that. But when you put combo breakers into those situations and people make that really good educated 1/3 guess, all of a sudden your mix-ups are completely gone if they guess right 3 out of 4 out of times. So you can't really, like, if you're balancing a character like Fulgore, you can't even really consider the system mechanics, the inner game thing that's happening in Killer Instinct, which is the combo breaking system, which is the whole other mind game that you gotta play. But I do feel that Fulgore does need some tuning down the line. I was getting used to things, and over the past couple of play sessions, I was actually getting pretty good with the character, learning some setups for the beam. It was not, like, ridiculously effective, but in terms of really never using it in Season 2, except for maybe a final attack on somebody, to actually maybe considering using it in some situations to land that follow-up damage. I'll tell you guys right now, my big plan with Fulgore now, with the Season 2 beam doing 30% additional white damage or potential damage, which allows you to get a follow-up level 4 combo if you get that follow-up, is you get them to, if you take the first life bar from somebody, or you get close to taking the first life bar, you pop Instinct, you get your full meter to get a beam, and then you hit them with the beam. You gotta make sure you hit them with the freaking beam. That causes a hard knockdown. You teleport in the front or back. That will allow you to do a 50-50 mix-up, kind of overhead, low, things like that. So, Fulgore gets access to that no matter what, and then you quickly end the combo with a very short, maybe 1-break opportunity, and kablamo, it does like 30-40%, and all of a sudden your beam, which did 30% on top of the follow-up combo, which does 40%, is like 70% damage, and it's very good. However, it's hard to land that consistently. It's just as hard to land Omen's big follow-up thing from his command grab. It's a very similar situation. People are very anxious to break stuff, and there was something that was fantastic initially, but they kind of had to fix it because Omen was sort of breaking the game with opener to ender damage. But opener to enders are no longer going to cash out damage in Season 2, so if Fulgore does an opener to ender and gets his like guaranteed 30% before you break the final few hits of the ender, it will not work anymore at the end of this month. Opener to enders got nerfed. They do not cash out damage anymore, meaning that you have to add something breakable in the middle of the combo in order to get the cash out of damage, which, to be honest, is fair. I kind of saw something like that coming when you had Omen doing 100% potential damage, when you have Fulgore doing 30% potential damage, giving them access to pretty damaging stuff if they land their follow-up. A lot of potential damage is potentially exciting, is potentially hype, but at the same time, it's very risky. And in higher level play, I think Fulgore can be a very good character because he has everything. He has everything you need to make a character amazing, but at the same time, you only see Fulgore in really high level tournaments every once in a while, and the few Fulgores I can tell you right now that frequent tournaments and do kind of well is pretty much Alex Valle, Rico Suave, and Ricky Walker. And these guys have shown off some pretty cool stuff in tournament every once in a while, but they have usually other characters. I think Ricky has been dedicated to Fulgore for a very long time, and we saw him in a tournament recently do some really cool stuff, but he didn't win. Fulgore has yet to win a big tournament as a result of a lot of other characters being in there. Maya's very popular right now. Sadira's still a very popular character. Saberwolf kind of went down. Jaco kind of went down. But Conra, TJ Combo, other Season 2 characters are very popular. They're winning a lot of stuff at the moment in the hands of very good players, and I do think Fulgore in the hands of very good players is extremely potentially dangerous, but it just hasn't been shown off yet that he can do stuff like this. So I do think that Fulgore with this this beam buff was pretty good, and it did give me a reason to use the beam every once in a while, even though the ultimate buff I would want for the beam, outside of using that pip charge, oh, I'll say right now, I didn't talk about the pip charge, I hardly ever use it. You realize that the charge mechanic for Fulgore, you really need to be in that mindset, because after you get that hard knockdown, I don't find myself using his instinct pip charge very much. I find myself being very offensive in his instinct and not really looking to go for the beam instead of just using my offense because I have access to all these pips, or pips that are regaining pretty quickly. So I don't really find myself, I've actually think I've used the pip charge maybe less than 5 times in total, and it only charges 1 pip, and you can't make it charge any more while in instinct, and I don't find it to be all that useful. So maybe you guys have different opinions, maybe you guys have different setups in regards to Fulgore and his pip charge, but it's not... It's a buff for sure, but it's not something that I'm using a absolute ton. But at the same time, I think the ultimate thing to make Fulgore and the beam great, in my personal opinion, would be to make it cash out damage. Would be to actually make it useful in combo. And the longer you get the combo, the bigger the cash out amount would be. So it would scale appropriately from level 1 to level 4. And of course, the longer you get your combo, the more risky it is, so it's kind of that whole risk-reward killer instinct thing. But there's probably a lot of other factors. I'm not a gameplay designer. I'm just a dude that loves Fulgore as a character. So that's pretty much what it's coming down to, guys. This is all completely my opinion, my Kingdom Hearts. This is what I feel in my heart about Fulgore type stuff, and I still enjoy playing the character, absolutely. And I do actually enjoy playing him more in Season 2 than Season 1 right now, but it's hard to look at the beam because we all have perspective of it being better in a previous version of the game, and it's really hard to kind of change people's opinions when it's always not as quite good. So, all things considered, what do you guys think about Fulgore in Season 2? Have you changed your patterns of using him? Are any of you guys actually using Fulgore more often than not? Because I'll say right now, when I go into Ranked, it's still pretty rare, and I'm not in Ranked all the time, but it's still pretty rare to run into Fulgore players, especially beyond rank 20. So, like I said, dudes, let me know your opinions below. Let me know if you think what I think is total hogwash. It's an absolute personal opinion of mine, and I still think he's a lot of fun to play, and I'm not going to stop playing him. As always, dudes, thank you very much for watching. My name is Maximilian, and I'll see you next time.